okay, well, you have your corporate background, which is important for artists to understand. And then you also have this artist background, which you're just getting off or getting onto the map right now. And so I figured you'd be a good person to talk to because I also like a lot. My boyfriend was like, you gotta stop playing her music. I will listen to a song over and over and over again until I get tired of it. And then
me too.
Yeah, then I won't listen to it again for like another 6 months or something. And then
it'll find its way back. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm the same. I'm definitely a album listener, not like a passive, playlist. Actually, yeah, because it's funny, actually. I just got, I've been submitting to playlists a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
So I got an email this morning. It was like, yeah, you've been approved for this playlist. And so, I mean, they only have like 100 followers, these playlists. So basically, like, I get on these playlists and then no plays come from it. Which is like still good though, because you never know. And also like this is what I tell myself. I'm like, one fan at a time, okay?
Yep.
Like, playlist listener listened to your song. So even if it got that one play from the person who put it on the playlist,
mm-hmm.
like, that's still progress, you know? And it takes literally I use this site SoundPlate, and then I also do Submit Hub, but I kind of do Submit Hub in like a cycle. Like, I go through, it's like a really intense process. I have a very intense spreadsheet, and then I like go through all of the possible like blogs or playlists or curators, and then I like listen to all the songs they approved and like hear if, so like my approval rating is actually pretty good, because like I go through like the work of being like, okay, like I could see my song on this playlist, but of course I never know. It always surprises me who picks it and then who doesn't. Like, sometimes I'll be like, fine, what the heck, I'm probably not gonna get it, and then I get it. And then sometimes I'm like, I'm sure they're going to pick it, and they don't. So
do you have better results on SoundPlay or Submit Hub?
So I would say Submit Hub has more legit like playlists and blogs. Like, for the last song, On the Road, actually got placed on Mahogany, which I was like, whoa.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. So that was awesome. And I think I was a little too fangirl about it, though. Because I kept being like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. And so, yes. And then the guy who owns it, Mark Mahogany, I guess his last name is Mahogany. I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he like didn't respond to any of my like, oh my God. Yeah. So I think I need to like tone it down a little bit, but it's still good. Like, so, I mean, he accepted it and he like put it up on YouTube and on like one of their playlists, which has been getting me a lot of streams.
It's very evident that your plays have increased within the last year.
Yeah, actually, yeah, it's been going really well. I think that also was part of the reason I have had it, because like I think I've gotten, like, I also just step away from that, because I was like monitoring it like a hawk. Like, I was like, okay, if I get like 50 new listeners a day, like, how can I do this? And like,
it's like looking at your likes on Instagram.
Yeah, you cannot do it. Just definitely, like, it's part of our human, like, I don't know what it is in our brains that make this instant gratification like something that you obsess over, but thankfully, like, I haven't really put much effort. I don't know if that's a good thing. I haven't really tried to do anything with my Instagram, so I'm not like looking at it as much.
Yeah,
but I'm sure like once that happens, it's gonna happen again. I just need to stop myself. But like, I do think so. I've gotten pretty good at like ignoring it. Like, I'll check it every day, just to get like the data points in. So I've learned some like really interesting facts over the last few days, and also just like seeing where people are listening. So yeah, like, I've got a bunch of people in the UK actually on, I forget which song it was. I think it was Shadow.
Really?
And I was like, oh, where are these people from?
That's cool.
Yeah. And then like, oh yeah, and someone like Shazammed it in Paris. And I was like, okay, so
what?
Yeah. And I was like, I don't know where they found this, because I mean, pretty much I'm the only one who knows where this song is going because I'm the only one like working it at the moment. I think Germany was a big one for for On the Road, which makes sense actually. Because they do, I do get the sense that Germans like that type of kind of like almost folk. Yeah, exactly. Like you see a lot of the artists coming from there who are like really good at that. So like the acoustic scene. So it's like it's weird. Germany's like either acoustic or like house, like deep house.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's pretty much. And then like you have obviously like the synth wave, you know, kind of like the hipsters of Germany.
Yeah, I know. I went to Berlin last year or in 2018, and when I go out dancing, I'm usually looking for hip hop and R&B and some rap, and then I went to Berlin and went out, and it was all
Yep. All of it. You cannot escape the
But I wanted to ask you, because I know your story, but I want other people to know a little bit about your background. Can you talk about how you went from your corporate experience, or how you started in the corporate music world, and then how you transitioned from corporate to artist management, and then artist management to artists?
Yeah. Well, so it was actually a transition so basically, yeah, I'll start from the beginning. So I've been like singing and for like my entire life and writing since I was a teenager. And like, yeah, and I guess it never crossed my mind that was like a viable path, like a career. Like literally since I was tiny, I've been like, oh, this is what I want to be when I grow up. And at first I was going to be a doctor and like a pediatrician specifically. I was a kid. I was like literally 7 years old. And I was like, I'm going to be a pediatrician because I like working with kids. And so, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it was pretty funny, actually. I think when I was like 7, I, for some reason, thought that I was like this mature, like, like I was like, I like working with kids. It's like, you are a kid. So yeah, anyways, that's like way back. And then, but then when I actually like was deciding what to do with my life, yeah, I went in. It's funny too, because like I've always been, when I was little, I was really shy. And like up until college, pretty much, I've still kind of been more reserved. And then I guess I liked economics, and like I was like, oh, business, like you can do anything in business. So I went and studied business. And so yeah, basically my whole life up until then was like get into a good school and like do this and then get a good job. And so yeah, so I was like in the investment banking trap. I'm gonna call it a trap because like I just think everyone who studied business was like, I need to do this to prove that I'm, you know, smart, I guess. So yeah, so I was like going and doing, I guess, the rat race, if you will. And yeah, and I got an internship, and then I was like, wow, I really don't like this. Yeah, so then so I did consulting after that, and then applied to business school like really early, did business school. And when I was at business school is when I realized like, wait, I can like combine my experience like on the business side and my actual passion for music. And I guess at the time, yeah, so I was like 23. I was pretty early when I went to business school. But like at the time, I think I was like very existentially like, how do I describe, like I knew deep down that I wanted to be an artist, or that I at least like wanted, because I had all this stuff I was working on, and I was like, wow, just like nobody's heard this except for like the few friends. Like I was starting to tell friends, and like I didn't tell my parents that I was writing music or anything. My younger sister knew. She like outed me one day, and then it was like, yeah, this whole thing, but it was fine. Like I was doing it. And so I was writing and like working on music, but then, you know, I was in business school. So I thought, okay, great. Like, let me go work in the music industry. So that's what I did. I went to work at Interscope Records as an intern, making minimum wage.
Which was what was it at the time?
Oh God, what did I make? I can't even remember at this time. I
$8?
wasn't even $15. Like, I don't even know if it was $15 at the time, an hour.
I don't think
Like,
so. If you
I
were
don't
in
think it
music
was.
school, yeah.
I'm pretty sure like I made around like 1,000 something. Like, I don't think I made more than 2,000 a month is basically my point.
Okay.
So yeah.
Whatever that is.
Whatever that is. Yeah. But I literally cannot remember what I made. Cause I was just like, it doesn't matter. Like, as long as I think I found a really good, like, rent controlled place for the summer. And so I actually think I ended up kind of breaking even. So that was good. And I like cook a lot and stuff. So like I didn't really have a lot of, and I biked to work. So not a lot of expenses.
Was that Interscope Records when you were in LA?
Yes, in LA, exactly. That was the first time. So I grew up on the East Coast, and then I went to work at Interscope, and then went back. That was like in between the 2 years. Then I went back for school, and then after school, I went back to New York and worked at SoundCloud because I was like, okay, music tech. And so I was there. That was also an internship actually, and and then after that internship was over, I was like, okay, you know what? It was like a really hot summer in New York, and I was sort of over New York. Kind of to your point before, the whole hustle and bustle, you can't hear yourself think. I was like, yep, this is a problem. And I also think I was like not wanting to go through another winter, like a real winter. Yeah. So when I was looking for jobs, I looked in LA. I like wanted to go in LA. And then I ended up going and working at big record label, Universal. And that was like a little over. I wasn't there for that long, to be honest.
What
Like
did you do at Universal?
So I was in like a really corporate group, and so our group did, like, I guess I was responsible for kind of more of the long-term strategy. So like new technologies, I looked at like virtual reality and like voice activation and how they would impact the music space and like what are the things we can do. But yeah, I would say it was I think the most challenging thing about being in that position is that it's weird. It's like we were like a centralized group within the company, but it's a very decentralized like it's just very tough to actually like mobilize any initiative. So like I was always like finding an issue between like strategy and like executing on it. And so, that was definitely one of the main reasons too, when I kind of decided like, okay, I was getting to a point where I was just like, what am I doing? I know I want to do music. And I was talking to like people I not worked directly with, but I was talking to some people, like friends from work, about like the like music, and I was like finally starting to like share it more with people. And so I basically was like, okay, I have to do this. I'm going to Sweden because I have some friends in Sweden that I had met here, who are like producers and writers. And I was like, we're gonna like do some, like I'm finally gonna launch this thing and get started. So so I actually left the corporate world to go and do like the artist thing. That was my intention. And then along the way during that summer, I met Sean, who's the artist I manage. Sean Bradford is his, like, I guess, artist name, although now he's rebranding also to Bradford. It's this whole thing. So so I met him, and it's like a crazy story too, because we have a mutual friend that I went to business school with. So like the business school part was like actually pretty integral to like where I am now. So she knew him from like a program they had done when they were younger, and he like was on Broadway and then moved to Berlin to like pursue music. And then we met, and like around that time, I guess we just like started hanging out. Oh, and then the other serendipitous part of it was like we met in Spain at a music conference, and then we both found out we were going to be in Stockholm for like a month after that. So there were a lot of weird synchronous things that
It's meant to
happened.
be.
Yeah. So then I started managing him, like, I think I told the story to you, like, unofficially.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, but I would say the whole journey and the whole process and the other thing I wanted to say in all of this too is, so when I was at SoundCloud, that was, I think, the closest I got to the artist, because my role was in content acquisition, which basically was like, I was focused more on independent creators, which is great because that's like where my passion is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to know some independent, like some artists through
Mm-hmm.
that. And that was like a very fulfilling part of the job. And then when I went back to corporate, I definitely learned a lot about the business, but there was like I felt like there was a big gap between like where I was, and I guess kind of to my point earlier with the whole strategy and operations, it was like, we focused on what the trends were, and we focused on, I mean, we were also talking to like the major services like Spotify, Apple, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And like, basically, yeah, I guess it was very metrics focused, which again is like, it's great to have a data centered approach. I just kind of felt like there's something missing in all of the stuff that we're doing. It just didn't feel like it was actually getting to like value creation for the artists at the end of the day, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think on a larger scale, of course, like we were fighting for, making sure our artists were getting the right like share and all of that so they could get paid, and so we could get paid in turn. But I just felt like there were a lot of other things that I could be learning outside of that environment. And so, yeah, that was like the other big reason where I was like, okay, well, I need to just do this. Like, I just
Mm-hmm.
need to be a guinea pig and go out and into the world. And I would say after 2 years of that, which is longer than I thought I would be away from the corporate world, yeah, I've definitely learned a lot. I think I've changed like massively too, just like as a, and I don't know if I would say like as a person, but I would say in terms of my perspective
Mm-hmm.
on a lot of things. And I think a lot of it too was I almost want to say like a spiritual process, like journey that I went on the last 2 years. And it was a lot of like actually spending time on my own in nature. Like basically the last 2 summers, I went to Europe for 3 months each summer. And yeah, I found out a lot about like myself, and also how hard it is to
Mm-hmm.
be an artist. And identity was a huge, I guess I think identity is probably the thing everybody struggles with the most, and also tries to build the most in terms of, whatever career they're pursuing. And even outside of a career, just, I think identity is, influencers, social media, everything is about identity. And so it was tough, I think, to, and I don't think I've established an identity in terms of my brand as an artist. But I think this is the process that I'm in, or the stage that I'm in now,
Mm-hmm.
where I feel like I do think it's necessary to go through it. I do think like the last years have been a very much like exploratory phase. And my friends have all told me this. They always say like, you need to stop and just look back and recognize all the achievements that you've made, and like you have music on Spotify. And like if you told me like 3 years ago like, oh, you'll have 3 songs on Spotify, like I would have been like, oh my god, like that was my only goal, was to just share my only goal was to get the music done. Like I was like, I have like hundreds of songs that I've never heard completed, and that was, I think, the most frustrating part. And that's like probably the biggest reason why I was like, I have to just do it, because I also was, I was telling myself I would learn how to produce. and all of this. And I do think a lot of it too is, and I still struggle with this because, you know, I love community. I believe so much. But I'm definitely like an independent, like I'm introverted, like my song Social Distancing is like about that.
Oh,
And so it's
you
tough for me
sorry, could you re-say what you just said? Because
yeah.
I think my internet broke up.
Yeah, I got the message too that the internet connection is
Yeah.
unstable. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, it's tough. So like I believe so much in community, and like, but for some reason it's like, and I'm like, this is so great that we met in this community, and like every time there's a bonfire, I'm like, I have to join. Even yesterday, I was just like, oh, I do not feel like joining. I was like, because I think I already was feeling a little off, but then when I started staring at the screen, I was like, oh no, I really need to leave. But I still, but I don't know. I think there's so many great resources and services out there for me to like meet collaborators and meet other artists. But like I do think right now I have met and collaborated with such amazing people who I would work with again in a heartbeat. But for some reason I've always also just been like, I need to know how to produce. I need to be able to you know, get this to the final stage. And yeah, but certainly would not have been, definitely upon reflection and like knowing where I am now, there's like no way I would have been able to release anything without working with other people. And like it was so much fun working with people. I literally had the best I've ever felt in my life has been in sessions. When I'm in writing sessions, it is where I know I'm supposed to be. And then basically what happened is I came back to LA. And LA, there's like tons of people. I know a ton of people too. But for some reason, I just like I don't know what it is. Like I think there's still a huge identity thing that I have to deal with. And this is like probably just personally to me, but I don't know if anybody out there is feeling like this too, because I think there's so many talented, creative people in this world who again, like I know for me and my story, like I just never thought that I could do it. Like I never saw it as an option, even though deep down I knew one day I had to do it. Like I always knew, I was like, the day of reckoning will come is what I always was thinking growing up. And then it like came 2 years ago, and it was, yeah. And it's been, I would just say too, in terms of like, I have an amazing support system among friends and everything. And my family, like, unfortunately does not think that this is like, you know, a good, but I think they have good reasons. And I don't think that they're not unsupportive, but it's been challenging. I will say. So like all of those things I knew I would have to face one day, and then I finally did. And so that feels really actually great to be like, I actually feel very, very grateful for where I am in the process. And of course it's very easy to get ahead of yourself. So so it's
Can you talk about your monthly goal that you have for yourself?
Yeah. So, okay. So basically this is what happened last year. So after, okay, I have to like back up. Sorry. This is going to be a whole other long story. So after I came back from Europe the first summer, I was like on this high, but I was exhausted. It was 3 months of travel. I think I had a lot of highs and lows on that trip. Just like travel fatigue. I like got my wallet stolen, but I got it back. And then my luggage was lost in the middle of the trip, but I got it back.
What?
And then I had like panic attacks. Oh yeah.
The drama. We want to know.
I know the drama. So basically, so 2 things happened that summer that were just crazy. And also I had a lot of friends coming and visiting, and we would like go on trips, and it was really fun. But I since last summer, and this is like part of who I am and my nature, like I just always feel like I need to be working and getting stuff done. Like that's when I feel really good, is when and like the best time is the reason why I think I have such a high when I'm songwriting is because it's literally the most fun thing. Like I just feel like I'm hanging out with people and I'm getting something done at the same time. So it's like my perfect environment, and like creativity. But again, like we all know creativity is like a sneaky, like little, you know, like it just sort of, like inspiration can come and go and all that stuff. But yeah, so my luggage was lost in the middle of the trip, which was really upsetting. And then like 6 days later, I was in another city. So it was lost when I was in Amsterdam, and then I was in Stockholm like 5 days later or 6 days later, and then I didn't get it back. Like I basically had written it off. I was like, okay, you know what? I just lost all my stuff. Like I had bought like new clothes and like a suitcase because I needed to in order to like travel to the next city. And then I got a call when I got back, like the day after I got to Stockholm, I got a call saying like they found it. I was like, oh my God. So they delivered it later, and it was like great. But I think the whole thing just like put me in this state of anxiety that I have never been in before.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a panic attack like 2 days later, but I've since learned that I have a sensitivity to caffeine. I've always known I have a sensitivity to caffeine, but I like basically think I'm allergic. Because I had coffee that morning, and then or I had been having coffee, and European coffee is way stronger than American coffee.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was that plus all of this drama hitting me. Again, my theory of things like hitting you later.
Wait, and you lost your wallet?
So my wallet got stolen in Barcelona. But I got it back, and that was a whole thing too. It was crazy.
How'd you get it back?
So this pregnant lady stole my wallet, and I chased her down basically. I mean, I just thankfully too, I took Spanish. So I was like talking to her in Spanish, and I don't know what happens when you're in a crisis, like all your language skills come back to you. So I was with my friend, and we had cause I had just come from a flight from Berlin. Mm-hmm. And didn't sleep because it was like a 5 a.m. flight. So I barely slept the night before because I was so scared I was going to miss this flight. So I'm sleep deprived, and we were on the metro, and we were like going down the stairs, and someone picked up my suitcase, and it was this pregnant woman, and she was like, oh, like, you know, I'm going to help you. And I was like, okay. I was like too tired to deal with it. So I was like, okay, fine, you can help me. Mm-hmm. But she couldn't carry it all by herself. So like I was carrying it. So this is her thing. Like we were carrying it in this weird sideways thing. And when she put it down, she like went into and I have one of those bags too, that's zipper and a clasp. Uh-huh. So I thought it was like foolproof, but no, she knew how to get in there and like get the thing. So like when we left, my thing was, my zipper for the purse was undone, and I knew she took it. And so then I like noticed immediately, and thankfully my friend was with me. Mm-hmm. And I just like ran. I didn't even think. I was just like, no, this is not happening. Cause that was after the bag got stolen. I was like, this is not happening. So I just like ran, because I figured like she's pregnant, she can't have gotten that far. And so she was on the escalator going up, and then I was like, you have my wallet. And I was like, I have money, I can give you money, I just need my wallet. I just really would prefer not to go through the trouble of getting my license. And I was like in the middle of my trip still. These things all happened in the middle of my trip. So I was like, no. I was like, I need my things, I can give you the money. So anyways, yeah, I got the local police involved, and it was like this whole thing. And yeah, I guess her husband had taken the wallet, like she had handed it off to him. He came back. They basically they didn't take any cash either, except my Swedish money, which was like $7 worth of Swedish money. So I don't know why that was gone. Maybe they just didn't know what it was and they threw it out, or I have no idea. Euro? So, no, it's like Swedish crowns, Swedish krona. Oh. So I had euros and US dollars in the wallet, and they didn't take it. So I was like, or maybe they did, and I don't know how much money I had, but I had, you know, a pretty decent amount of euro left. And so I'm pretty sure they didn't take it, which is surprising to me.
Those European pickpocketers, they're sneaky.
They're really sneaky. So yeah, that was a whole thing. So yeah, and then that resulted in me landing in the hospital again after another panic attack. So after both these incidents, I landed in the hospital, and I was like, ooh, anxiety. I need to pay attention to this now. Mm-hmm. Cause yeah, I've always gotten like flight anxiety, but I never really had panic attacks. And then it was like a thing that started happening. So anyways, yeah, that's all to say. After I came back from this whirlwind trip, which was amazing and also crazy, I entered into this like huge like dip of depression, and my health was like all over the place. It was so strange. I couldn't like eat. It was I was like, there's something wrong. Something is wrong with me. And I do think a lot of it was just like processing what just happened in my life. And during this time is when I started talking to Sean, and that's what actually helped me get out of that state, was like helping him like strategize and like build his career. And so that's sort of where I realized. And I'm sorry, what was your original? I knew that was like the month thing. So basically that led me into the following year, and it was getting to the point where I was like, all right, I've been doing this for a year. I need to do something. I need to have something to show for this. I need to put some music out. And so I finally was like, okay, before my next birthday, my birthday's in November, I was like, before my next birthday, I'm putting out this song. So I ended up doing it in October, on October 10th. And that just happened to be the day that I decided to release it. And then I had the next single as well that I had been working on that summer, because then I went back to Europe. So I put that one out 11/11. And I was like, wait, I'm doing a 10/10, 11/11. I might as well keep this going. So then I decided that I was going to do a release every month, just to like keep consistent and like actually keep myself, you know, because it is very easy to fall into this like, oh, you know, I'm not ready. My next single isn't ready yet. I'm just going to, which is literally where I am right now. And tomorrow is 4/4 and I have to put something out. But I basically decided that the guideline is I need to at least release something. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be a piece of music. And so, yeah, so I think tomorrow I'm doing a live stream. So I think that's one of the things.
Nice.
I definitely want to
what time
tomorrow I'm thinking 5 p.m. PST, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Okay, cool.
That's the current goal. I have not announced it. I've told I've like told groups of people, like I told my business school chat friends. Like honestly, I think this is more so like because I have been feeling like, what can I do in this current state, the coronavirus state that we're in now? And I was like, I need to do this live stream. And like, I think like that's the only way that I can at least help certain people. And yeah, I mean, beyond that, I think it's the first step. Like I would love to do more that's actually like, you know, I had thought, you know, of doing a live stream and having all of the proceeds, which I still might do a donation, and then having all the proceeds go to a fund. But yeah, I think I'll still organize that. But tomorrow at least I was like, let's just start with this. Since I did the songwriting live stream, I haven't posted any. It's like, this is just me and social media. I go through waves. I'm like totally on for the whole week. I'm just like posting every day. I'm like, yeah. And then I just like, and then I fall off of it. This is a very like, I would say cyclical pattern in general with me, I would say, which is why I committed myself to releasing something every month. And this month it's been particularly difficult. And I think it's, I just have accepted it. I think at this point, I already knew. I think when this started in March, I think I've put so much pressure on myself to put something out. And the reality is, I am sort of at that stage. And I think this is something hopefully that can help other people who are stuck. Like you're always going to get stuck in a particular moment. And like, you know, we've all heard the, I guess, I don't know if it's a saying or if it's a like general piece of advice. But there's always, a point where you are struggling, and when you're struggling, that's when you're learning the most. And then one day you like get there and you're like, whoa, how did I get there? But you know, it's been kind of this long process. So that's definitely where I am at the moment, because the first 2 songs I worked on with other people. Like the first Shadow I wrote with other people, and then someone else produced, and then someone else mixed. So like I was involved, but like less so. And then I got more involved on the second song, where I did more of the like, production. I'm always involved though. This is like my problem. It's not a problem, but I do think at some point I'm always cognizant of the fact that if you want to work with me, that like I definitely have an opinion about how I want things to sound. And
but
so
that's
yeah.
probably also because of your corporate background, your business background, but then you're also a very talented artist. Like the first time that I heard you on, what was it, Thomas's Sapphire Stories Bonfire, and you played the acoustic guitar, and I always, whenever someone plays live music, I am always a little bit weary because I'm like, it could sound good, but sometimes you never know. It's like going to an open mic.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, definitely.
who knows if the artist is going to be good or not? And then when you played, everything was perfect. I was like, oh, I'm in heaven. Because your sound, it's beautiful. Like you sound good on the guitar, and you sound good vocally, and it's not like you don't even need auto-tune. Obviously, when you produce and mix and master the music, you're going to use a little bit to make sure that everything mixes well. But you're one of those artists where you could go out there and perform in front of a live audience and you're still really good. And I think that's probably why you're such a perfectionist, is because like you have the talent, you also have the business background, you've worked corporate, you've also worked as Sean Bradford's manager. So it's like I need everything I need all my ducks in a row in order to make sure that everything is perfect. But the reality of it is you don't always need to, like what you were saying, is you don't always need to have everything perfect. Like you're never going to get there. Everybody's first viral video, everybody's first like, I don't know, viral photo or viral piece of music usually isn't even the one that they've perfected. It's the one that they were raw in.
And oh yeah, 100%, 100%. And what I've been finding is really interesting, because that goes to the point that I want to make, is like so like the second song that I put out, I was like, this is, and Sean, the guy I managed, he was like, this is the song that's going to break you. And I was like, really? I don't know. Like, yeah, I do think it's good. But like, I think like when it was first produced, I was like, this is like better than I ever thought it would sound. And like, that was like ridiculous, like, which is great. Cause like, in my head, I'm always like, it has to sound like this. And then this was the first time I feel like someone like proved me wrong, where they were like, no, I can make it sound better than you thought it would. And I was like, this is amazing. So that was awesome. But then I was really depressed because it didn't do as well. And I was like, what's wrong? Why? Oh my gosh. Cause like, to me, it was like so polished, like, and the mixing guy, like, I worked with him so much. At the end, I think he told me, he was like, I've never done so many versions of a mix. And I was like, I'm sorry. But also part of it was like, he's in Sweden and I'm here in time difference. So like, it's tough. Like, I very much am like I just like, my main frustration is always like, I'm like, can I just get in there and like do it with you? But at the same time, it's like, I value so much like the other person's input. Like I really want to make that clear. It's like, I really don't want to be like the backseat driver. So I get very self-conscious about that, actually. Like, it was kind of a tough process, because from just on my end, because I was like, oh no, you're doing it again, you're nagging them, oh no, like, you're being a backseat driver, like, please stop, because I really want to get out of the way. Like, that's it. Like, when I bring people in, I really just want them to like shine. And that's really important to me. But it's hard because I'm like, So anyways, that whole thing happened. I put it out and I'm still really happy with it. And like, people still I do think a lot of guys, especially, I've found like I would say my male audience is mostly listening to Fast Life. And then like female audience is more like Shadow. And then I would say On the Road is like split, because It's just like, like a nice, but on the road I did, that was the most kind of a collaborative, organic experience, because I like had recorded the guitar and sent it to my friend who's a female producer. Whoop, whoop.
Nice.
And yeah, and then she was like, yeah, I'd be happy to like produce this with you. So she did like a huge part of I was listening back and I was like, oh my gosh, she made it sound so good. But then I did a lot more hands-on too with this. Like I ended up doing a bunch of the mixing at the end of it. And so it was a big step for me, but it was like by far the least, like I have to make this perfect. Like I think this past song, and this one's been doing like probably the best out of like, I mean, Shadow, I think I had a lot of early interest because people were like, what? Mm-hmm. Like that was the first song I put out. So everyone was like, I got to hear this. And I got a lot of really good response, and it was like very encouraging. And so, yeah. And it's funny because when I put out Shadow, I was like, I have no expectations going into this. And so I think it did really well. Like, I think it broke 1,000 streams in a week, which is, I didn't know that wasn't common. Like I just was like, I was like, oh, cool. And then my friend was like, that's really good. Like people don't do that. And I was like, oh, really? And then Fast Life happened, and it took me like a month to break 1,000 streams, which was still apparently like good. Mm-hmm. But I was just like, oh, I was just like so depressed. And it's just like this whole mental game that you're playing, because I really deep down, if you ask me, do I care? I really don't care. But for some reason, you just start competing with yourself, which I guess, is again, something people tell you to do. They're like, compete with yourself. But I'm going to tell you, don't do that either. Like, just like be proud of where you are, and like, just keep working and doing the work. And yeah, I still have to tell myself that. And so, yeah, so this time I got very ambitious, and I was like, I'm going to take a song from like creation to final, and I'm going to put it out in April. And I thought I had all this time, so I was going to be able to do it. But my emotional state, the state of the world, that did not care about like the timeline. Mm-hmm. And like, I think I just started putting so much pressure on myself because I had this time, that I was like, you have all this time, Lily, like, why aren't you finishing this? So that was like pretty much like 2 weeks ago, I was spending every day just like trying to tweak this song. And I think I've gotten to the point where I'm like, it's just not going to get any better.
Yeah, you just have to put it out there.
I like need to put it out, or B, like, but the thing is like, it really doesn't sound like how I want it to sound. And I really want to just get someone else to like finish the song with me.
Yeah.
I'm at that point now, because it's such a lonely process when you're doing it all by yourself. Like, I mean, I know there's artists who do that. Mm-hmm. And those are the ones that I like highly respect and like wish I could, one day I think I will get there. But I think this is like a really major leap from like doing, working with other people. Like the first time you go and like do the thing on your own, mm-hmm. like, you know what I mean? You're like jumping into the deep end with like no one to catch you the first time. Like it's hard, and you still need, and like most of the time you still need someone to like, you know what I mean? At least be there to like make sure you don't drown. So I somewhat feel like that in this process. So that was the original goal. And then coronavirus hit. And then I was like, I just need to write my feelings out. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so that's.
What time are you releasing your music tomorrow?
So I theoretically I'm going to put something out at midnight, but that maybe. So I'm definitely not releasing on Spotify. I'm going to say that first. Definitely not, because that requires at least 2 weeks ahead. Mm-hmm. And ideally, like I know to get editorial on the editorial list, you need to most likely
have 1 week.
Well, I heard you need like 4 weeks out.
So that's what they suggest. Yeah. So you at least have to give it 1 week, and then mm-hmm. they suggest that you do 4 weeks, because the more time you give them, the more likely they'll be able to listen to it. Because if you get it within that 1 week, then it'll be in front of them, but they might not have time to listen to it because of all the people who have it. So the 4 weeks.
Yeah, and that's what that's what I heard, because like basically every other release I've been doing 2 weeks in advance. Like that's mm-hmm. been my deadline. And then this time around, I like knew I wasn't gonna have anything ready by then, and so I decided that I'm going to first put out a project on SoundCloud. I think I'm gonna do so the concept I have, I'm a very concept person. So the concept I have is like the 5 stages of grief, because we've all been going through that.
Your coronavirus album.
My coronavirus album. And I did this actually in December. Like December, I put out this hashtag no filter, because it was like to combat my desire to be perfect. I was like, I'm just going to release my voice memos, which I think is what I'm going to do tomorrow, because I have no time to do anything else. I'm just going to like finish the songs and then be like, voice memos. Because like at least I can always take it down later. I can always put out, and like my thought is that I'll put it out. I mean, I'll probably just be like, hey guys, here it is. It's on SoundCloud. I'm probably not going to get that much attention on it, but at least some people will listen, and I think it'll be a good time to just be like, oh wow, like these are the people who are actually listening to my music. That's cool. And then if I find that like one of them is doing really well, maybe I'll put that one out on Spotify. That was sort of my thought as an experiment. Or if I don't finish the whole project tomorrow, I think what I might do is just put out one song, and then like as I go, maybe like every week during the quarantine, I'll put out another song as we go through the stages of coronavirus grief. At least on SoundCloud. And then I can still put out like basically my goal is to do, at least once every month, but there's no rule that I like can't put something out, in 2 weeks, for example. So I've given myself a little bit of a break, I would say.
That's good.
So
you need
that's
it. You need it.
Yes. Yeah. And I do really want to write. I feel like I have so much that I want to say and have learned and all this stuff. And it's really hard for me to like make sure the tone is, this is like me getting into my head and being like, I need to send the perfect message, but I'm sure I'm going to put something out. But like the whole blog thing, I think Thomas had mentioned too. He was like, you should do a blog. And I was like, you're right. I've been thinking about it forever, and I haven't done it yet. So yeah, these are just all the things I've been beating myself up about over the last.
But the thing is, you're gonna start this job. When you start your job on Monday, it's not for a company that's in the music industry, right?
No.
Okay. Yeah. So when you start that job, are you gonna still be focused on your music?
So when I start the job, I think really I honestly am quite excited to this. So this is funny, right? Like this is the stage where, because I actually think, I mean, there are the musicians who, and this is actually a really good point that I want to make. There are the musicians who are studio rats, and they're in the studio and they love it and they can't imagine anything else, and they're just like at their computer. I am not that person. And I've learned that I have to stop feeling bad about not being that person, because, like people are always like, you have to put your 10,000 hours in, you have to like be there and do the work. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I'm not doing the work. Like I'm not sitting at my computer, or like when I am, I'm giving myself eye strain and like throwing up afterwards. Like, I just know, like, I just think from a physical perspective, like I just can't do this. Like I know the environment that I'm well suited in. So as much as I want to be a producer, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to like become a producer, which is a shame, because there should be more female producers. And I feel like I need to like fulfill that. But that being said, I still think one day, not to say that one day I won't be a producer, I just know I'm not going to be the type of producer that is sitting in there, you know what I mean? Like just all day making stuff, because the way, like I've always been a creator that's driven by like the song, and the production is a really important part, and it's obviously like it gives life and color to the whole thing. But I mean, I'm always going to focus on the song first. And so that being said, I'm actually quite excited, because songwriting, actually, when you have all the time in the world and you're just alone, is quite torturing. It's quite a difficult experience, actually. And I also am not the type of person who's like, I need to write a song every day. I have friends who are songwriters who are like, I admire them so much. And again, I beat myself up over this because I'm like, I'm not doing that. But I mean, like I already have hundreds of songs, and they're songs that just happened organically. And I know I can't rely on inspiration striking. I know that like there has to be some, I have gotten better at trying to figure out that balance, because like that's growth. Like I can't just be like, I'm never gonna like have any discipline to my writing, because that's just, but I also recognize that I think the overall mindset that I'm in is so important. And the fact that I think I was depressed when I came back because I didn't have that steady thing, which is why I started then managing Sean, which is why then I started pouring all my energy into Sean. And then I was like, oh no, I'm not focusing on me. You know what I mean? So I'm sure I'm going to go through exactly the same thing with this job, because I really do want to go. Like, it's just very difficult for me to do something and not kind of give my all to it. So I know that I'm going to go into this job and then just be like, yeah, just like go for it. You know what I mean? And yeah, I want to be a full-time employee. Like, I don't want to just be like, oh yeah, you guys are my side thing that I make money from, and then I do music. As much as like that would be a nice narrative in my head as the musician. But like at the same time, like I told the company when I was interviewing, I was like, look, like, cause they warned me, they were like, this is an intense job. They were like, this is both like mentally and like the energy required. It's like a very critical thing for the business. Like I'm working in this content department for an anime company, which is really exciting. And so like I want to do that. Like I want to give this experience like its full attention that it deserves, and also like learn what I wanted to get out of this too. So there's definitely a part of me that's like really excited to actually jump back into having that. And I think overall that's going to help, I think, get me more into a routine, or really like force me into a routine, which then I think will help me like get through all of this. But yeah, I'm definitely worried that I am going to not have the energy. It's not even the time, it's about the energy. To do this. But I will say, like, I actually got a lot done. I think when I was working at the label, I was always thinking like, oh, it's because I don't have the time and the energy that I'm not doing and putting out this music. But that's not actually, then once I had the time, like all the time in the world, I was like, that wasn't it. That was definitely not the reason why I didn't put anything out. I was like, that's not it. Like I've just started to get to the point where I'm like, I don't feel bad about it anymore. Cause I was like, oh no, like I thought that if I had all the time, I would just do it. And it's not the reason, because I actually had a lot of like inspiration. I wrote from a real raw place a lot of times, like the situations I was in, I like wrote about them, not directly. I was never like, this person sucks. Like I never did anything like that. I just sort of was like, let me just put my raw whatever into this music. And not to say like, I mean, the writing process changes. I do think like definitely like having time, like retreats, like I'm basically like, my goal is to on the weekends at least like give myself the space to be like, I'm just gonna do music today. And like if I get through like, you know, the first quarter of the day and it's just like not happening, then I'll shift my focus. But at least like give it the space and honor it with like a whole full, because I've recognized that when I get into the music making process, it does then all of a sudden like, you know, I need the time. But it's definitely possible to do it on weekends is what I've realized, because all of my productive time, like it's project based. It's like, you know, I get really into it, and I think it's like dangerous actually for me to stay there too long.
It's a dark place.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is like just the general theme. I think the reason I'm going crazy too is because like I'm so used to staying at home. Actually, my song is like about how used to being at home. Like I'm actually an introvert in my core. And so I'm like a homebody. I love staying home. And so like this song is basically about like, oh, I've been training for social distancing. Like this is normal. Like, I was quarantining before it was a thing. And like but I do need to go and see people and it gives me life. And like, I can't be in either scenario for too long.
Yeah.
Like I'm totally drained if I'm like, when I was on that trip, so drained. Like I definitely took time to like be in Airbnbs like on my own and just like during the trip. Like I could not function otherwise. Like there's no way that I can just like, yeah, it's actually quite funny because I was thinking about it and I was like, wow, like I've never had like a roommate that's like in the same room as me. So that's like one, like, it's just like, I need my me space. I've seen some artists who make their introversion their brand, if you will, but it's not really. And I don't know, the word brand is always so hard for me because like I was obsessed about it over it with like the artists that I'm working with. Like we definitely went through some like tough times, I guess, because we were always like, you know, my thing to him was always like, your brand isn't clear. Your brand isn't clear. And he was always just like, what do you mean? Like, what? And I have the same struggle. So I'm like, I totally get it. Like, it's like when I tell you your brand isn't clear, it's because I know from personal experience what it's like to like not have a clear brand because I don't have a clear brand either. But like authenticity is like so important to both of us. But at the same time, it's like, I think Gen Z, one thing I will say is Gen Z artists, their whole generation grew up, I think, with a better sense of authenticity. For some reason, I think weird, or at least understanding and representing their authenticity, because like I can't speak for everybody, but strangely, because I feel like maybe they didn't have all these like I don't know, like I think we grew up in like this Disney age. And for some reason, I feel like there's like this icon in my head where it's hard for me to reconcile like authenticity with like perfect princesses. And they didn't have that. And like they had all this, like I just thought it was more real to grow up as like a Gen Zer. But at the same time, all these influencers are Gen Z. And like I can never tell if they're fake or not, because what I see at least is very authentic. Like I just see them being more authentic, and I think that's why people are connecting with influencers or whatnot, and artists who are like that. So like, you know, there's this one artist who had like this great TikTok video I think I was talking about, and her song's been put in the same playlist as my song. So then I listened, and I think I told you, I was like, I like her song better than my song. And then I looked at her brand and I was just like, oh, she has such a clear brand. And I was just like, why?
What artist is that?
Her name is Sarah Kays. If she watches this, shout out.
Yeah, I'll tag her.
I know, like I really like your song and I'm in the same playlist as you. But like, yeah. And I think, I mean, she's a bit younger. And like, oh, and that's the other thing I had to get over was like, I was like, I'm too old. I'm too old for this now. Like I'm 29 now. Like, oh, I'm too old, which is something that I really need to just, because I'm not too old. I definitely not too old.
No.
And it's just hard because like you see, and like, I don't know what it is, but I do think it's harder for our generation of people to be authentic. I don't know what it is. I don't know how it was in what we were raised to be or whatnot, but I like my whole story has just been me putting on a face or a mask or whatnot. Like being in the business world, it's like you're always doing that. And just recently, I feel like I'm just totally myself. Which is like when I'm talking to you, it's like the same as I talk. And I think this has been the case, I would say, for like the past 5 years. Like I feel much more like myself and I'm getting more and more into myself. So that's great. But in terms of communicating that as an artist, it's been really hard, especially like visuals. I'm just like, I don't know, like because like this is me, like
you put my face on everything.
I know, like should I just put my face like this, like? But then it seems like I'm a comedy account, which I don't want to be, and it seems really gimmicky. Do you know what I mean? Which that works so well for certain people because that's so their personality. Like, you know, like I have a friend who's always been really funny and started doing stand up, and his content is like so on point with who he is. But like it's so inauthentic for me. I know I'm not like I know I can be funny, but I'm definitely not like you know, it's very risky for me to do that because I think it'd be very hard for me to take if people thought it wasn't funny, number one. And number two, it's just like not intrinsically like part of who I am. I don't know. So that's, you know what I mean? It's just like, I don't know. So basically, and I had this whole thing too. I really wanted, and I still really want people to just listen to the music and not look at the face.
Yeah.
And so originally I was like, I'm not going to put my face anywhere, and it's going to be this whole mystery, and then people will find out who I am one day, but not now. And
yeah. Well, do you know HER, right? Her.
Yeah.
She's like that. And she just recently started showing her entire face. Yes. And I think that's one thing that is very common in the music world, because in business, you have to have a brand. And it's so hard to just put your stuff out there, because you want to create raw, authentic content, but you also need to create your brand, because people gravitate to someone who they know is specifically in one genre, or specifically this is their persona. And you have to figure out where that balance is.
It's really interesting to see the playlist that all of these are on. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, like, because I've recently also started watching a bunch of videos on like how the algorithm works in Spotify. Mm-hmm. And it is very much like they look at all the artists that, because I don't have a radio station for my channel. And I was like, when will this happen? And it's basically like, it looks at all the artists that other people are listening to, and if they, and like it has to be a percentage of your listeners and a percentage of their listeners that overlap, is what I realized.
Yep.
So if I'm on playlists with like super big like people, like it's not going to show up, because obviously like the percentage of their listeners who are listening to me are probably like not as big, but so they do actually try to keep it also to like roughly around the same level of artist. But that's how they do it. And it's also based on the playlist that you're on and the blogs. And like, I'm literally I've been on hip hop blogs. I've been on like, this, like the super folky, like it's so funny. Some of the on the road playlists I was listening through, and I was like, oh my God, these are like all like, just like dudes, cowboy dudes with their guitar, like, or, you know what I mean? Like, I was just like, this is wild. Like, I don't, so I mean, and like a part of me though is like, this is awesome. Like, this is literally, this is what I want. I want to be everywhere. Like, I think it's so cool that like one of my songs is on this like super hip hop with like a bunch of like trap and stuff, which I was surprised, by the way. Like, I just think I'm on the edge of all these playlists. Like, they're all
what
like,
playlist was that?
Oh God, I gotta go back through and just go through. If you can go on Spotify and like go through, because I put all the playlists on my artist playlist.
Oh, nice.
Like some of them, so some of them are just like, but yeah, I gotta go through and see like which. There was one hip hop blog. I put up all my blogs too, the ones that I was featured in on my SoundCloud.
Nice.
Yeah, so because like one of them's a hip hop blog, and I was looking through the other songs, and they're all like, like Scott and and like all this stuff. And then it's like me, which is really funny because I'm definitely not that cool. And then Fast Life actually is quite interesting. Like if Haim or Dua Lipa are on the playlist, and then it's also like other artists who aren't like that famous. Like if those are like the most famous ones on the playlist, I've been on those with Fast Life. Fast Life gets on, which is amazing. Because then at first too, I was like, oh my God, this is so amazing that I'm on these playlists. And then I realized no one cared. So then I stopped saying things like that. I was like, I guess, it's cool. Okay, cool. And then on the road, it has been also kind of all over the place, but definitely like the more obviously acoustic, chill stuff. But like some of this stuff is like really, I would never listen to it, to be really honest. But then I do listen to it and I'm like, oh, this is nice. Like the vibe is, it's there. But and something I will say, because I know we were supposed to talk more about, I guess, like having worked in the music industry from the business side and then being an artist. Mm-hmm. I do think like overall it's benefited me in the sense that like I think, and this is actually quite, I guess, contrary to what people might think, it's not that I have any insight. I don't. I really like, there's nothing, literally nothing from working at the label that I have been able to now transfer into my current. I am starting from, and actually I've had to get very humble with myself and be like, I'm starting from zero. I'm learning just like everyone else. Because like from the ground up, all the little steps and things that you have to do, and digital marketing from a record label perspective and an independent just starting out perspective are way different, two completely different beasts. Like you don't approach it in, I would say the general principles, yes, 100% those things, but those things you can definitely learn. And it's funny too, because like I've been getting a bunch of targeted emails from people who are selling courses. I'm sure you've seen all of these, all the courses that are just, which I'm like, great, like that's cool. That's a cool business model. And I'm like, but I'm also just like, I'm so tempted to like buy them. But then I realized like, you know what they're going to teach me is pretty much what I already know, to be honest. And I do think that knowledge is something that I did get from being on the business side. And that knowledge is actually not anything specifically to the detail, but more on just like being savvy about how the industry is. And I think it's a mentality more than it is an actual like any information or any even strategic approach or like any of that. I think it's like more of the mentality, and like I'm not as afraid, I would say, of like, I guess, trying things out. But I do think although I'm less afraid, I'm more risk averse than a person who really doesn't know. You know, ignorance is bliss. Like, especially in the music industry, I actually think there's a ton of people who didn't know what they were doing, and they just made a bunch of stuff, put it up, and then later they got hit with this and that, and like, oh, you can't sample this and you can't do this. You know what I mean? It's like I am 100% cognizant of all of the boundaries that I have. And so for me, it's actually like a conscious decision to like, you know, I think there's benefits and drawbacks, right? And it depends on the type of artist that you are. Like I've always known, like, I'm not the type of person, I am very curatorial, if you will. Like I have like this specific concept and vision, and then I like, and so I know like the path and the overall approach to take, because like I know what will work is pretty much my point. My point is like, I know when it's good. And that's what I've gotten from working on the business side for these major labels who obviously like they, you know, so I know what it's like to do it well. But then the problem with that is like, I'm not there. It's like, I know when it's good and like, I know I'm here, but I also know that I'm doing pretty well, like where I am. Like if it just depends on like how long of a time frame you have and like what your approach is and what your goal is. I think that's the biggest thing. I still actually, like, I tell people this all the time. I'm like, what's your goal? What's your goal? I ask them. And then I ask myself and I'm like, I have no idea. Like I say I know, and like, you know, I can say like my goal ultimately is like one day I would love to have, I'd be at a point where over 1 million people per month like are listening to my music on Spotify. This is like a specific tangible thing that you can strive towards, right? But what is that really my goal? Is that the reason I'm making music? No. I don't like, no. 100% no. But, and like the goal of me, which is why it's so tricky, right? Because like, I think you can have all these tangible, and I do think artists get caught up in this a lot of the time. But there are definitely specific things that you need to do and invest in order to get to the point where you have those numbers. And that whole, how all those pieces come together is something I do understand, and it takes a village. That's at the end of the day, that's what it is. And I think back to kind of my earlier point about I can't do this alone and I need collaborators, like, and community is so important. I mean, I cannot stress enough how important community is. And it just like, and being introverted, it's so difficult. I'm just like I love talking to people. I love connecting with people. Like it is, I mean, it's funny too, because I think a lot of times I'm an extroverted introvert for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I do think introverts, the thing with introverts is, and I have a lot of friends who are introverts, like they're actually quite extroverted with people they connect with.
Yeah.
It's just in new settings, like I can kind of be like, ooh, awkward, shutting down a little bit. Or it's really about like like I cannot be out all the time. Like my best friend is also lives in New York, but fled to go to Florida and be with her family before all this became crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But she's an extrovert, and we traveled together. And like the main thing we fought about was like, she was like, I'm here on this trip. I took work off. Like, we have to go out. And I'm like, I've been on this trip for like 2 months already. Like, I'm dying. I need to rest. You're not respecting my body and my health. And it's just like, it was like this whole thing, which culminated with me ending up in the hospital having a panic attack after having been out too much. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's really the thing.
Are you blaming your best friend for putting you in the hospital?
No, definitely not. No, 100% not. No. It was like, there's no blame there. But I definitely, but it's like, it's not even, it's more of like, when you have fights, like in a relationship, it's like, it's just like, you just want to be like, do you respect the fact that like my body does not run it? Like,
yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's not even, it's not
like,
that really.
We are two different people. I can't operate the same way that you operate.
Exactly. Because and definitely there's no blame. Like I made all the choices, and in fact, like the reason I ended up in the hospital has nothing to do with that. It's like because like we were out, and then I saw my friend, and then I was like, oh my gosh, and then we like had to stay out all night, of course, after that, and then I was like, cannot handle it. Plus the wallet. It was a big thing. This is like the day after the wallet got stolen. So yeah, there's a lot of extenuating circumstances around that. And obviously I'm fine, and I was fine. And I had health insurance, actually. I had bought trip insurance. Nice. And also healthcare in Europe is so cheap that it doesn't even matter. Yeah, I can talk forever about healthcare. But anyways,
all right.
Back to the music.
Wait, I've got 5 more minutes. So yeah, any last minute gems that you have?
Okay, so number 1 is I think going back to my earlier point of you can't do it alone. I do think, and like even beyond that, even if you are starting alone, like I think no matter what stage you're in, just like play, do as much, and like be open. Because I think a lot of times like we get really caught up in trying to define our sound, and we haven't even taken the steps needed yet to even know what our sound is. Mm-hmm. Like just make stuff, and if it's bad, it's fine. And also there's no like bad. That's another thing I'm learning is like there's really no such thing as bad, because someone's gonna like your music. But actually, like for real, because I was on this playlist. Just a little elaboration. I was on this playlist, and this and like the activity is, and I actually really like this. This guy who approved the playlist said like find someone else on the playlist and that you like their song and shout them out on your playlist. Or sorry, on your socials. And I was like, that's awesome. That's like such a great way to like build community in your playlist. And have people support each other. I was like, this is a great idea. And so I found this one girl, and it was just like this very, like her voice was just so sweet, and it was so stripped down. And I went to her Spotify, and I was like, this girl only has like 39 monthly listeners. Like, this is crazy. But like, and it's not maybe everyone's cup of tea, but like, the thing is someone's going to appreciate, like, you just don't know, you know what I mean? And and a bunch of the songs too, I was like not vibing with, but obviously someone else is. And so like, I think like, don't be afraid. I actually see this, I guess this is probably like point number 1 and point number 2. Point number 2 is like, just put it out. And I would say, and my like, caveat to that, or I guess elaboration on that is like, I think like make some stuff that you're okay with experimenting and putting out. I do think like it's quite funny. We were talking before too, like people don't really know what their hits are going to be. And at the same time, so like they hold on to them until they have like a plan, which I think is actually not a bad thing to do, because I think having a plan is really important when you're actually building momentum. So I would say like in the beginning, no plan, just do this, just seriously, just like have like a general direction, of course. And like I think structure is good. Structure and plan are two totally different things. So having structure is really key, but having a plan when you're starting out is like, I would just throw that out. And then when you start actually developing that, and like the next thing would be to like get a team, get support. And like, so I would say like, if you feel like releasing this without a plan would be, I don't know, a bad idea, then maybe listen to that and release something else that you don't mind releasing. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes people like to save. I know I do that. Like I'm trying to like save my best stuff, but at the same time I got to a point where I was like, screw that, and I'm just like releasing stuff. But yeah, but the reason I say that is because like you also don't want to be a one-hit wonder where like you, and I've seen that happen a lot, where you put out your best stuff and you know it's your best stuff and then you have nothing else to follow up on. So like having a catalog of stuff in the back pocket, even if it's not like done, but at least there, it keeps your momentum going. I don't know if that was like 3 gems already.
I think so. So you've got team, you got put it out there.
Put it out there. You don't need to have a plan at first. Put it out there, and then when you do, get a team and have a plan. And yeah, I guess like, what was the other thing?
Plan and structure. That's what you said.
Plan and structure.
You got it.
We got it.
Cool. So then lastly, what is, I guess, what is a good way that people can contact you if they're curious about your music? And what's the next step that you would like to see them do? Like, do you want them to go listen to your music on Spotify? Do you want them to send you a message and tell you, like, give you feedback on your music? Or what's your next step?
Yeah, so I think the best, yes, definitely if you can listen and follows on Spotify are very important. So please, if you like it, follow it. Because I know I also am kind of lazy about following artists that I like, but please follow if you do like it and listen. And but I really just want to like connect with people more than anything. So Instagram is good. So my Instagram is at @she_is_EL.SY, which is EL.SY, or you can send me an email. So my email is EL.SY_THEMUSIC, EL.SY the music. Yeah, it was
everything. Don't worry.
Just link it. Yes, but that's the ways that you can listen. Or like if you don't have Spotify, SoundCloud, you know, I put my music up pretty much every year. In fact, SoundCloud probably has the most complete collection because there's some stuff on there that I didn't put up on SoundCloud, or sorry, on too many things, on Spotify.
Cool. I'm going to, can you smile for the camera? I'm going to
yeah.
this.